All right, hey everyone, welcome to the next lesson of Discover What is Possible. So here I'll be going through a few examples of investing success at different levels. And let me just make myself a little bit smaller here so we can go on to the next slide. All right, now when confronted with investing for the first time, it's sometimes difficult to get an idea or vision of what is possible in the real world. So this is very important to do before we start learning so we can set expectations correctly. This is why I introduced the concept of setting goals and compound interest in the previous lesson and why you calculated a scenario for yourself. So keep in mind that this is not a get-rich-quick idea. It is a set of skills, habits, and knowledge to empower you to get wealthy slowly and reliably. And not just slowly and reliably, but even better than most actively managed financial funds and financial investors. You've just done your own math with milestone 1, so make sure your previously defined goal seems more tangible, that your estimates are conservative, because it's often better to prepare conservatively and then end up with better than expected results. And generally, I've prepared some real stories of success following the core concepts that we teach in this course. So first of all, the core concepts are start investing as early as possible. Secondly, pick a solid investment strategy, of which we'll be going for index funds. Trusting and compound interest over time, and building the habit of adding a significant portion of your income to your investments every month. And the stories will hopefully illustrate some of this. So first, some extreme examples of the mega rich end. So we have here Warren Buffett. You'll have seen him earlier in the course. He's also known as one of the best and most successful investors of all time. He basically recommends exactly what we teach in this course. We will have had a quote from him in the first lesson you would have seen of how the know-nothing investor can perform better than most actual active investors by using index funds. And he currently has a net worth of over $100 billion. But one thing you should realize about him is he really accentuates or illustrates the power of time and time in market and allowing compound interest to work over time. So one thing you should realize is that the majority of his wealth actually came after the age of 65, and he started investing at 10. So this is why it's so important to start investing early and consistently. So you can find his story and a few other ultra successful investors in this article from Investopedia, where it concludes we should focus on the long term with compound interest and to never treat investing as a get-rich-quick idea. I'll leave a link in the article below, but it'll go over some of the other most successful investors. They're usually heads of investment funds or asset management groups, but they all sort of follow this core conclusion from all of their different stories. So it's about really focusing on the long term. Then we have John Jack Bogle. So Jack Bogle is one of the most transformative investors of our time, where he's the founder and retired CEO of the Vanguard Group. Some of you may know Vanguard. It was first started by Jack Bogle over 40 years ago, and today it is the largest fund company in the world, even ahead of BlackRock Inc., with over $6.2 trillion under management. So many of you will also know that a lot of index funds are named after Vanguard. So we have, the BlackRock iShares, and then we have Vanguard. The reason being is they pretty much invented index funds or tracker funds as a concept and really popularized it. And therefore you'll see Vanguard as part of the name of a lot of different index funds and ETFs in whatever broker that you'll be investing with. And Bogle basically had this extremely simple investment style. He believes that putting money into low-cost index funds that have low commissions and very little turnover of assets is the real way to build a solid investing strategy. And it works. As we know from Morningstar, it even beats the vast majority, 75 to 95% of actively managed funds. And this is exactly what we follow here in this course. Now, a bit of a different example. Let's actually listen to our rich BFF. Some of you may have seen her on Instagram or on TikTok. This is Vivian Tu, also known as your rich BFF. She started her career back on Wall Street and then decided to help with financial education for people across the internet. And she's built a massive following where she basically brings you through some core concepts. And there was an interview recently which I think is quite useful for us to know. Where she says, when you're ultra wealthy, you do have access to some unique investment opportunities, but the vast majority of ultra wealthy people's portfolios consist of index funds, ETFs, and mutual funds, and maybe some sector funds. Really smart people aren't sitting there for 12 hours a day doing investment research to pick the perfect investment. They just use broad index funds. So if someone who's been working on Wall Street for a very long time, actively looking at how the rich invest their money and stay rich and stay mega wealthy, we should be listening to her. So listen to your rich BFF. Next up, some stories of regular people. So I purposely want to highlight totally normal people with totally normal working jobs and normal lifestyles. Some of the previous scenarios, seem quite out of reach for most. While they illustrate some core concepts such as investing early and investing in index funds, what I want for you is to also have some regular people with regular outcomes that are much closer to what you'll be achieving yourself. So all you need, as mentioned, again, it follows the same core concepts of start investing in as early as possible, pick a solid investment strategy, trust and compound interest over time, and build the habit of adding a significant portion of your income to your investments every month. So first up, Reddit is actually a goldmine for motivating success stories. So this thread, I believe, is from the stocks thread, but you can also there are also many different investing threads such as EU Personal Finance or FIRE. So FIRE, I remember, is short for Financial Independence, Retire Early. There are many similar threads that focus on personal investing. And also, you'll be able to find personal investing success stories. But here's a great one from Undercover Story OG, where he says, I've been steady investing since 1990 when I got introduced to mutual funds as a second lieutenant in the Army. It was a slow go, and I was only putting $100 a month in the market. I was slowly able to ramp up to 20% of my checks, and I've been doing so since about 1997. Yesterday, my Vanguard targeted 2035 retirement fund closed at $3.1 million. That combined with two other brokerages have yielded a portfolio of a little over $4 million. I have to work until 59 and a half to avoid tax consequences of early withdrawal, but if all goes well, I should have a little over $6 million by then. 6 more years, and then I am completely done. And then the comments afterwards are, and this is how it's done. Take notes, everyone. And really, we should be taking notes here. And someone asks about his investment style, and he goes boring as can be, index mutual funds. So even boring index funds, exactly what we promote here, of $100 per month and leading up to 20% of his paychecks consistently over time, leading to over $6 million. We'll leave a link to the thread in the description, but there are a lot of similar threads out there, as mentioned, personal finance and investing and financially independent retire early threads. They're all great for looking for success stories. And then here we have example of Ronald Read from Psychology of Money. So you may have seen it at the beginning of the course. Psychology of Money is definitely a book we recommend to practically anyone. It introduces and explains some really core concepts of investing, but more importantly, a lot of lessons when it comes to your own personal greed, happiness, how you should treat money, etc., and how it also influences how you use money and how you save money. So I think it's very recommended as a light read for anyone. And here we're basically reading out a quote where it says, my favorite Wikipedia entry begins. Ronald James Read was an American philanthropist, investor, janitor, and gas station attendant. For those who knew Ronald Read, there wasn't much else worth mentioning. His life was about as low-key as they come. By the way, this Wikipedia entry extract, this actually still exists on Wikipedia today. So if you actually Google Ronald Read in Wikipedia, there is, it will mention gas station attendant and janitor as well. It's still there. Anyways, Read fixed cars at a gas station for 25 years and swept floors at JCPenney for 17 years. He bought a two-bedroom house for $12,000 at age 35 and lived there for the rest of his life. He was widowed at age 50 and never remarried. A friend recalled that his main hobby was chopping firewood. Read died in 2014, aged 92, which is when the humble rural janitor made international headlines. 2,813,503 Americans died in 2014. Fewer than 4,000 of them had a net worth of over $8 million when they passed away. Ronald Read was one of them. In his will, the former janitor left $2 million to his stepkids and more than $6 million to his local hospital and library. Those who knew Read were baffled. Where did he get all that money? It turned out there was no secret. There was no lottery win and no inheritance. Read saved what little he could and invested it into blue chip stocks. Then he waited for decades on end as tiny savings compounded into more than $8 million. So, the key takeaway from the story is that through the power of investing and compounding returns, Even janitors can become millionaires over time. The key thing here is it's all about habit and spending more time in the market without interruption. So again, in conclusion, from these stories, all you need is start investing as early as possible, pick a solid investment strategy, which in this case is the index fund, and trust in compound interest over time. And more importantly, you'll be building the habit of adding a significant portion of your income to your investments every month. So armed with that knowledge, let's get started with your first brokerage account in the next lesson.